When you begin to change, something subtle yet powerful happens. Not only within you, but around you. Growth is not a silent process. It sends ripples through the energy of every connection you have. The moment you start to evolve, to outgrow old habits, or to think differently, people who were once comfortable with your older version begin to sense that shift. It's not always because they wish you harm, but because your evolution disrupts the balance they were used to. You see, most people build relationships not around truth, but around familiarity. They learn to love you as you are, or more accurately, as they have always known you to be. But when you begin to step out of the box they placed you in, it challenges their sense of control. Your confidence, your independence, or even your silence can feel like rebellion to those who thrived on your old patterns. When you stop complaining, stop seeking approval, stop playing small, suddenly they no longer know how to connect with you. They might begin to distance themselves, or worse, criticize you for the very qualities they once admired. This is the moment when love can turn to irritation and admiration to resentment. It's not because you've become arrogant or cold, but because you've changed the rhythm they were dancing to. Growth forces everyone around you to make a choice. They either rise with you or fall away. The ones unwilling to confront their own stagnation will resist your evolution. They will project their discomfort onto you, calling it change for the worse. But the truth is, when you start living with purpose, you unknowingly expose the lack of it in others. People who are not ready to face themselves will often turn against the mirror that reflects their own limits. And that's what your growth becomes, a mirror. When people begin to distance themselves or act cold toward you, it's rarely because of who you truly are. More often, it's because they see in you something that unsettles them, a reflection of what they wish they had the courage to be. When you start to shine with authenticity, it can unintentionally expose the places where others have settled for comfort, fear, or pretense. Your calm may remind them of their chaos, your confidence of their doubt, your freedom of their self-imposed limitations. This reflection doesn't flatter their ego, it challenges it. And instead of looking inward, many people choose to direct that discomfort outward, labeling it as dislike or hate. Most people live under the illusion that their reactions are about others, but in truth, they are mirrors of themselves. When someone mocks your ambition, it's often because they abandon their own dreams. When someone criticizes your peace, it's because they haven't found theirs. When they accuse you of being too much, it's usually because they've learned to live as less. What feels like hostility is often self-protection, a way to avoid confronting the inner void your light makes visible. You become a silent reminder that another way of living is possible, that one can rise above fear and choose honesty over acceptance. Yet not everyone is ready to face that truth. Some would rather pull you back into the shadows than step into the light themselves. This is why the same qualities that once drew people to you can later repel them. Your growth, your energy, your presence, it all becomes too real, too confronting. But remember, their reaction says more about their relationship with themselves than it ever could about you. You are not their enemy. You are their mirror. And mirrors, by their nature, are not always loved for what they reveal. It's a strange thing to realize that much of what we call love or friendship is often based on silent conditions. People tend to embrace you as long as you fit the image they've created in their minds. As long as you agree, comply, and stay within the boundaries they're comfortable with. But when you begin to express yourself differently, when you grow beyond those limits, the nature of those connections begins to reveal itself. What once felt like love starts to look more like control, and what once felt like belonging begins to feel like a cage. The moment you stop living for approval, you start noticing how many of your relationships were built on the need to be understood rather than the freedom to be yourself. Conditional acceptance often disguises itself as care. People will say they want the best for you. But what they often mean is they want what's most familiar to them. They'll support your dreams until your success surpasses their comfort. They'll encourage your growth until it challenges their sense of importance. This isn't cruelty. It's unconscious attachment. People want to feel safe, and your transformation can make them feel like they're losing control of the version of you they depended on. But real connection doesn't demand sameness. It allows for evolution. True love celebrates your unfolding. It doesn't resist it. The friends and partners who genuinely care for your soul will not make you choose between your authenticity and their comfort. They'll stand beside you, even when your path takes a turn they don't fully understand. The rest will slowly drift away, and though that loss can sting, it's also clarity in disguise. For when conditional bonds fade, they make space for something rare, connections rooted not in need, but in mutual respect and freedom. Only then do you discover who truly values your being, not your compliance. There comes a moment in personal transformation when the path forward grows quiet. The faces that once surrounded you begin to fade. The voices that once encouraged you grow distant. And you start to feel the ache of standing alone. This loneliness is not punishment. It's a natural part of awakening, growth, by its nature. Separates you from the patterns and people that kept you bound to who you used to be. When you begin to rise above self, doubt, fear, and conformity, you no longer fit into the same conversations or habits that once defined your identity. The loneliness you feel is simply the space being cleared for something more aligned, more genuine, and more peaceful. As you stop chasing validation, you start to notice how much of your energy was once spent on being understood. You realize how many of your connections were sustained by the constant exchange of approval. The reassurance that you were enough. But when you no longer need that reassurance, some people lose their place in your life. They may interpret your stillness as distance, your silence as arrogance, your independence as rejection. They cannot yet see that your solitude is not withdrawal, but renewal. You are learning to find company within yourself, to build peace without relying on constant affirmation. This stage of transformation can feel heavy because humans are wired to belong. Yet the deeper truth is that loneliness often precedes expansion. It's the space where your soul recalibrates, where you begin to understand that peace isn't found in crowds, but in clarity. The absence of noise makes room for intuition, and the loss of false connection opens space for real ones to enter. It's in this silence that you begin to attract people who meet you at the depth you've reached. So while the path of growth may seem lonely at first, it's only clearing the way for a kind of connection that doesn't fade when you evolve, the kind built on truth, not attachment. When people turn against you or withdraw their approval, the instinct is often to explain, defend, or prove your worth. But true peace begins when you stop trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Staying rooted in your truth means remaining grounded in who you are, even when the world around you begins to question it. Growth demands a quiet kind of strength, the ability to walk alone without resentment, to be kind without being compliant, and to let go without bitterness. It's easy to lose yourself in the noise of opinions, but freedom lies in knowing that you don't need validation to live authentically. The world is full of people who will project their fears onto your choices. They will call your confidence pride, your independence rebellion, your peace indifference. But your task is not to argue or convince. Your task is to remain steady, to let your actions speak the language of integrity. Every time you refuse to shrink for the comfort of others, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you choose silence over defense, you affirm that your worth is not up for debate. Remaining faithful to your truth doesn't mean becoming rigid or unkind. It means choosing alignment over approval, growth over familiarity, and authenticity over acceptance. The right people will not be threatened by your evolution. They will be inspired by it. They will recognize the quiet courage it takes to live honestly in a world that rewards pretense. Those who fall away were simply not meant to accompany you into the next version of yourself. So, when the world misunderstands your transformation, breathe deeply and stand firm. The storms of judgment will pass, and what remains will be unshakable. The calm that comes from knowing you no longer live to be liked, but to be real.